Hello all my JUKI friends, my name is Alba and welcome to my sewing studio. As a JUKI trainer, I get asked a lot of questions when I'm out and about traveling at different shows and at different dealer events. And my two most asked questions are, how do I use my needle threader and how do I adjust my tension for my bobbin on my long arm? So using the needle threader, we've covered in one of our last tapings. So today I'm going to cover setting tension for the long arm. And I am at my JUKI J350 with a project in progress here. And I'm going to show you some of the things that I have learned and that have helped me with getting true, really good tension on my long arming. So one of the things that we are going to do is I am going to show you that bobbin case and bobbin. And this is an M-class bobbin and bobbin case. And you will notice that on the inside of it is a bluish color. And this is the spring. And this spring is really important because as that bobbin is turning, it prevents backlashing and that thread from just jumping around and skipping. So you really want to make certain to look at that spring and make sure it is still a bluish color. When this fades, it indicates that that spring needs to be replaced, and they do wear. The other thing we are going to look at is the bobbin itself, and I'm moving this around in different directions. You'll notice an area where it is open, and you want to be careful of your bobbin case with dropping it, especially on a hard surface, against the metal rails of the long arm, and getting any indentations, any bumps, any bending of any kind with that metal will also affect how that bobbin pulls and the tension that you're going to get consistently. So handle your bobbins really very carefully. Now, the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to put a full bobbin into the bobbin case. Now, if you notice, this is my bobbin case as it's about to go into the bobbin, and my thread is off to the right side, and it is going to go into that bobbin case and reaching where that slit is, and it's going to go right in that tension area. Now, this area here, that little clip on that bobbin case, is what holds the tension. And you will notice that there are two screws. The screw that you adjust for adjusting tension is the larger of the two screws. And this is a universal thing. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. That is how you loosen or tighten. And you want to think of that screw as a clock. And you want to turn that in 15-minute increments, smaller increments, not twisting 2 or 3 times, in order to get that proper tension. Now, I am going to show the TOWA gauge, but I want to show you tension in my hand. I am setting that bobbin in my hand with the front of the bobbin facing me and the bobbin itself facing towards away from me, or what would normally go in the machine. When I pull on that thread, I am able to inch up that thread without that bobbin case releasing from my hand. And that is good tension for a long arm. I'm going to start again and show that to you. Now, for some people, testing by hand is just not what they like to do. It is not something they have a good feel for. They like a number, they like a setting, they like an exact. And this is where the TOWA gauge comes into effect. The TOWA gauge is one of those things that I am so glad I got one of this. It gives me an exact number to go to. And for the long arm, for the J350, you want to go between 180 and 200. My ideal personal setting is right around 150. That happens to be my sweet spot for my quilting. Now, on a long arm, the tension is looser than, let's say, on an embroidery machine. On a long arm, I'm dealing with batting and sometimes multiple layers of batting. So that top and bottom thread need to come right in the middle of that batting to form good tension. Because this is a loftier area, that lighter tension makes it easier to achieve this. Now we're going to use that TOWA gauge. And when you're inserting the bobbin into the TOWA gauge, it is just like inserting it into a machine. You want the clip to be pointing up, and we're going to set that in there. And you want to press and hear a click, just like you do on your machine. Now you will notice that there are two wheels, and the wheels are indented so it almost looks like a bobbin. It has a top, a bottom, and a sandwiched middle area, and this is where you want your thread to go. You're going to place your thread along the bottom side of that first wheel, up and around to the top, and you'll notice that gauge moves as you're doing this. And my thread is going to go into my thread guide and out to the side. And what you want to do is pull steadily and even. And I'm going to pull that one more time. Steadily and even. I don't want any jerky motions. I want nice, steady, even. And that number, the gauge, should be settling in one area evenly. If you are pulling steadily and even and you're getting a lot of jumping around, you want to check both your bobbin and your bobbin case for damage. Now I'm looking at this and I'm right around that 150 mark. Perfect. Just where I want to be with my tension. So let's say my number was pulling between 200 and 300 or right at 300. The screws are visible right on the side of the gauge. And again, with that small screwdriver, you're going to make small increment changes either to the right or to the left, whether you're going looser or tighter, until you pull and get that accurate number that you want, between 180 and 200 for the long arm. Now, I am going to lift that lever. I am going to drop, and you will loosen both the bobbin and the bobbin case at one time. And I think I'm going to do that again to show you. To remove that, I'm going to lift open, turn, and that will release both the bobbin and the bobbin case. Now I'm going to show you the difference with a different bobbin set at a different tension. Now this one happens to come from my Tajima Sai embroidery machine. It locked in place. I'm going to go underneath, up above, same way. And this one is pulling right around 160. So for my embroidery machine, I like this to be a little bit tighter. and I'm going to explain why. And now we're going to talk a little bit about tension. So in embroidery, I want, instead of those threads meeting right at the center point, in embroidery, I have a layer of fabric and stabilizer. So getting those threads to meet up right in the center is a more difficult process. So I like my top thread to go over to the back side of my embroidery and for my needle thread to be just a little bit tighter and wrap around the back. So in order for this to happen equally all the time, I like my bobbin tension to be a little bit tighter. Versus in my long arming, I like it to be a little bit lighter. Now, once you get used to setting your bobbin tension, you're eliminating one thing out of getting good tension, and that is your bobbin. Your bobbin is set, it's perfected, it is just right, so you're going to set it in the machine and forget about it. So now, whenever you need to do an adjustment, you know the only thing that's being adjusted is my needle. So if these are my two threads and they need to match up evenly, and my needle thread is pulling over to my bobbin, I know I need to loosen up that needle thread for it to become perfect. The same way, if I'm seeing bobbin thread pulling to the top, well, I need to tighten up that top thread to get it to place perfectly. So I find that by testing my bobbins and by getting that tension just right, it makes getting my tension perfect, regardless of the machine, just that much easier because I'm eliminating the equation. Now, with improper stitching and tension, it's going to be a consistent. It's not that occasional loop or that occasional hiccup. When you're getting something that's just in occasion, that is going to tell you that you need to look at your bobbin and bobbin case to make sure that, one, that there's no damage there, and that everything is good. As I said, if they bump on the floor, really, really important to check for that. And also for your check spring to make sure that there's no wear there. If I'm showing that my bobbin is good and there's no damage, I now have to think about my thread and my needle combination. Do I have the right size needle for my thread? And those are things that we will cover in another video in more detail going into that combination. But I hope that you've enjoyed seeing this video, especially using the TOWA gauge and how to test that bobbin manually. But I think that this may be that next additional accessory that you just can't do without. I wanted to thank everyone for joining me. Please make your comments on this. Don't forget to subscribe, but leave comments and let us know what topics you'd like to see covered. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.